Welcome to episode 11 of the Panorama Van Build. Today we're going high tech. We're going to set up a 4-camera security system, but it's also a full surveillance system with motion detection and recording, and you can even monitor it from your smartphone over the internet. So this is the Zosi 4-camera 720p DVR security camera setup. Now, this one does not have a hard drive. The reason I didn't order the hard drive is I want to be at the budget level, which was under 90 bucks on Amazon, and I wanted to try this out and see if it's something that I really want. Now, later on, I can upgrade it. I can buy a hard drive, and they're very inexpensive. So this kept my budget well below. I didn't really feel a need for the 1080p. I know 720 is going to do great. So here is the unit, and there's some videos on YouTube about how to install the hard drive. It's not hard. It comes with a mouse to help run it. And this one handles up to 8 cameras. All right, I'm going to show you how I modified the camera to disconnect the infrared relay. Now this will also disconnect the IR cut filter, which has something to do with when it shifts modes, it has a filter for color. That's why I left the other 3 connected, so I'm going to be comparing them to see if that really is as much a big a deal. So the first thing you need to do is you go under here and you twist this little tab here. And it takes a little pull, and then this comes off. Now, something I found that you're going to want to watch out for. Watch out for these little rubber things. They started falling out. I didn't know what they were. These little rubber bumpers. Evidently, they got really hot somewhere and the glue gave out. So these little rubber pieces fell out. And what I had to do was, these ones are still stuck. But the other ones, I just took a little black piece of duct tape and went around them and just taped these back on. You need these. And then this just drops out. And this is really kind of what I want to work with. If I can get this up against the glass, maybe could keep the IR emitters, but what happens is when you put this behind glass, looking out, as soon as these infrareds kick on, it's just going to reflect right back into the camera, so that's not something I want. So I think I'm going to have to disable them and give up some night vision, but we'll be testing that out. So this is the aluminum, just unscrew it. And then there's this little foam piece that comes off, which is on pretty good. Now keep your orientation there. So there's just 2 little screws that need to come off. One's right here and one's right here. So I'll just take those screws out. All right. So I've gone ahead and disconnected it already, but all that it was this little plug was just right in here. So I just used my flathead screwdriver and just kind of wiggled it and finally got it loose. Be real careful not to jerk the wires out. So this is your IR array, and then this is your light detector. All right, so then I just leave the wire in here, and then we just reverse the process. Little bumpers are eventually going to come off because all the other 3 cameras did when I was adjusting them. So what I did is just put a black piece of tape here, wrap it around under there, and that's going to make sure that those bumpers don't come off. Okay, let's look at some power usage on the system. I use my watt meter to check these myself. So each camera with the infrared array off uses 0.8 watts. When you turn the infrared on, each camera jumps up to 2.8 watts, so it jumps up to triple the power. So if you want to use 4 cameras with the IR off during the day, you're looking at 3 watts. 4 cameras at night with the array on, you're looking at 11.2. The controller I have without the hard drive uses 7.3 watts. The monitor I have uses 9.6. That was shocking. I was surprised how low that was. It's a large monitor at 1080p. So I was really impressed with the watt usage on that. So if you wanted to run the controller plus the 4 cameras without the monitor, you're looking at 10 watts. And at night, 18.5. Now, if you want to put the whole package together, the monitor, the cameras, the controller, during the day, you're looking at 20 watts. And then at night, 28 watts. Now, if you run that for 8 hours in amps, worst case is you're going to use 18 amp hours to run 8 hours. And that's quite a lot of power. So what I want to do is this one right here. I'm going to use it to where I'm going to leave the controller and the cameras running, because the cameras boot right up, but they don't use a lot of power with the IR array off, and the controller takes a long time to boot up. So I'm going to leave this running all the time. So over 8-hour period, I'll be using 6.7 amps. And then whenever I hear something or I want to check it, I'll just reach over, turn on the monitor. The monitor's LED comes instant on, and it will already have the feed. Now there's one other source of power is I'm going to be running this system through an inverter, because I don't want to convert the system to 12 volts. I'm worried about the voltage fluctuation, frying the cameras or some electronics. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it at 110 volts. So I'll need an inverter, but this is the good news. I only need to have an inverter that can handle 28 watts. So my 750 that I've got set aside for this is way overblown. So I won't lose much in the way of power and converting if I use a very small inverter. So that will be a way that I can look at to save power. So here we got 3 of the 4 turning on the infrared because I disconnected the one and the monitor. Let's see what we've got. And so we're running at 24.7 watts. So 100-watt inverter would handle everything very easily. So what I wanted to do here is a little head-to-head test. Now the camera on the left is the one where I have disconnected the IR assembly. So it'll eventually lose out to the darkness. But what I want to show you is I'm going to go on my dimmer and I'm going to very slowly bring the lights down. And what I think you're going to see is that the IR kicks on pretty early and there's a big range where you really don't need it and you can still see a lot of detail. So here you can see I have dimmed the lights all the way down, and if you notice the lighting behind the monitor is pretty dark, and that's the way it is in the room. Now it's picking up light through the door there. There's a little bit of light coming in, not much. But you can see in the foreground of the sofa, even though there isn't great detail, there's still plenty of detail. You saw where that infrared came on very early and flipped over to black and white, which is fine. But I'm always going to try and be in a place, if I'm going to be in a city, I'm going to be somewhere there is some lighting outside, so I not necessarily need to see in complete darkness. So what I wanted to show you is there is some ambient light coming in from outside these windows here, but even with all this light coming in, it's still very noticeable that these IR lights light up. Here's the one that I've got disconnected. So setup of the system was extremely easy and very straightforward. In fact, when you plug the cameras in, they just start up on their own. I had to pick some options to get the 4 screens in there, and you do have to set up a password. Now, mine is not internet connected. I'll go over that later. That is something that you can set up if you want. This is going to be more for just security when I'm in there just to check my surroundings. I'm not going to have time to show you all the awesome features, but I'm going to just show you a couple that I think are really cool. There's some videos out there that you can look up on this one, but I like the motion one, so I'm going to right click here. I'm going to go to the main menu. I'm going to go to setup. I'm going to go to alarm, motion, and then I'm going to go on camera 1 and I'm going to set the area. So what I've got here is normally it looks like this. And so if you want a certain area to be monitored, then you clear it out. And what this will do is then if anything passes by, let's say, the door or the window, we want the alarm to go off, and it can send you a message if you're hooked up to the internet. So let's save that and apply. There's a lot to this. There's a whole lot of stuff in here. So basically what's going to happen now is, let's say somebody comes through the house, passes through these, but now look at camera 1 in the upper left. So my hand's going to pass by that doorway and it jumps to that camera and sets off an alarm. There's a little delay. So if it sees any motion, flips up, brings that one. I have it set to bring that one up, and then this alarm goes off. And you can have it to where the alarm doesn't go off. And there's also some plugs on the back which will allow you to wire in a separate alarm system into it. So really cool stuff. All right, I've got the cameras installed, and it's time to play Find the Camera. I've got one camera inside the glass shooting out, but you can see with the angle of this windshield that it reflects everything. It's hard to see. You might be able to see it. If we look in the side window, there it is right there. I mounted it on the visor, and that made it really easy to aim and move, and then I can flip it up so it stays out of the sun, or I can flip it down out of the way, and it's real easy to do left, right, up, and down. All right, for the back window, you can probably see it right there. If I stand still, you may not see it, but now this one I left the array on, but I have it up against the glass so we won't have to deal with reflection. But we will see some light when it's very dark. Now the one on the back window, you're never gonna see it so tinted. Now it's away from the window, so I had to disconnect the infrared array. So you wouldn't get reflection at night. And then there's one more on the side. It's kind of in the same place as the other one, right here. So I'm hoping at night it won't be very noticeable. So here's the one that I mounted the visor, just screwed it into the visor with the existing case. You do have to put a black towel down or there'll be a lot of reflection, especially when the sun is directly hitting the window. So I can put it down here and then I can move it around wherever I need to. Pretty handy. The two side ones, I took it out of the mount, so it's just the eyeball, and then I made this little metal bracket for it, and I put some Velcro in between it, so it's just kind of pressure holding it. So up against the glass so we won't get the reflection. I checked it last night, works good, and then it's just tucked into here. And the one on the other side is the same. So the one in the back is right here. So here's where I mounted my monitor on the side here. I'm really pleased with the cameras on these, and I'll show you some photos a little bit later. We can analyze the cameras, but they're doing a great job. So I got this mount here, and it just pulls out. It swivels and comes out like this. And then I did bolt to the wall. So there's going to be some screw holes there, but I like this one because it's got the swing arm on it. It swings this way, and then it has the arm that goes out like that. Now it won't go all the way one way or another just because of the angle and the mounting, but it's good enough to where I can either see it from the back or I can swivel it around and also see it's from the front. Nice size monitor. So I mounted the DVR box right here down the side. It barely fits in. And then I have the inverter that runs it right here. This goes to the monitor. This powers both the DVR and the cameras. So I can turn the whole system off just by turning off the inverter here or turn it on that way. Let's look at the picture quality here. So here is 4 cameras all on one screen. And what I'm going to do is zoom in on this one here. So you can see there's the other 3 over there. So this is the quadrant view. And then look how well it does the shadows and the highlights. So now I'm going to click on this one, and then that will take it up to this is the entire monitor here, so we can get a closer look. So look at the sun coming through here, here, and here, and here's the shadows, and you still get all that detail and definition. So I'm real impressed with the camera and how it handles it. And look at this one. This is bright sun coming through the trees, reflecting off the leaves, and yet you can still see the bark and everything that's in the shadow. So extremely good cameras. Okay, so let's talk about I'm happy enough with this system. I'll probably get a hard drive. So hard drives are very inexpensive. You need a SATA 3.5 inch. And on Amazon, I'll put links below to everything. There's a 500 megabyte drive that'll work for $24 and a 1 terabyte for $44. So you could order the system with one already installed. Installation is very simple. You open the box, you plug in a connector here, and you put the screws to hold it in. Pretty simple stuff. If you feel like you can do that, it might save a little money. Now, if you want to go wireless and access your system and your hard drive from the internet, you'll need to get an extra thing. This is a Wi-Fi extender. And how this works is on the back of your DVR unit, there is an Ethernet port. You get an Ethernet cord, you plug it into the extender. Then what you're going to need is a hotspot. You'll need a hotspot that stays inside the vehicle. So this is a standalone one, and what you'll do is you connect this wirelessly to this. And then when you can take your cell phone, download their app, and then you can access from anywhere the video feed and the recording from anywhere through the internet into this hotspot. Now you could use an old cell phone because it doesn't need to be particularly fast. You could use an old cell phone that you can add to your plan, but make sure it has the hotspot will work. All right, it's 8:30 in the evening, and you can kind of see how dark it is outside. And they've all switched over to dark mode. There's a little experiment I'm doing. This one here is the back one. This one has the IR board disconnected so it doesn't flip over to the IR cut filter. This one, I plug the board back in, but I put duct tape around the LEDs so only the light sensor is exposed and it can't use any light. And if I come close, you can see that this one looks very good. And if we go over here, look at all the grainy interference. So evidently that IR cut filter, even without the IRs available, makes a big difference. So I'm going to let it get a bit darker and we'll keep checking on it. All right, so it's 8:43 and the difference has gotten very noticeable. So here it is. So here's one that has the board fully intact, everything normal setup. Here's this one as well. And this one with the IRs covered. Still see it looks pretty clear. And now look at this one where I've disconnected the board. All right, this is pretty amazing. I'm inside and I'm looking out the front window and there's just barely any light. Here I'm going to look out the side window here and I can't see much more than I see on my screen here. But now look at that same view on the monitor. It can see better than I can. That is really impressive. The low light is just amazing. So here is that one still going strong. And look at this one, almost completely gone. So the answer is definitely, if you have to shoot through glass where you can't be right up against it, the answer is leave the light sensor open, but put tape over the infrared LEDs. All right, 905, nothing on that one. What's happening here is even no matter how much I try, a little bit of that light from the infrared is escaping. I couldn't cover everything, so it has to be open right around the area where that sensor is, so it's leaking through. So I'm gonna have to figure out what to do about that. But still, it's still getting a good picture. Starting to break up. Now these two, that one's going well, and this one you can see the infrared light beam is starting to illuminate. So 9:30 and there's no light at all to work with. So this one black. This one you can see that's with the IR what the light will do. So the foreground's pretty lit up, the background a little bit. And then here, this one that's shooting out into the woods, you can actually see quite a distance out there. And this one, of course, without the light, you can't see anything. I wanted to show you something. I'm going to pull the tape off and show you what happens if you don't cover up the infrareds. Wow, this is something I really didn't want to see. So what you're seeing is it's hitting the glass and then the light is reflecting off the dashboard. So you're seeing the dashboard, but you're also seeing the windshield. And look at all the bugs out there. That is amazing and pretty gross. Well, thanks for joining me for this night session of the Panorama Van Build. So in the next session, I've got an idea for a very cool track system for curtains that are insulated and blackout. So I'm going to be working on that, and I think that'll be what's coming up next. So I will see you in the next video, and I'll put a couple links here to some other videos that you might find interesting. And until next time, thanks for coming, thanks for subscribing, thanks for liking, and thanks for your comments.